channel. Press the bell icon to get more updates.
The Snow Queen. Sam, what are you writing? I'm writing my homework, Didi. My teacher has asked me to write a story about friendship. Hey Sam, I know a wonderful story about friendship. What's the name of the story, Didi? The Snow Queen. Once there was a wicked wizard who enjoyed making weird things. One day, he made a magical mirror. This mirror was like no other, for it made everything reflected in it appear ugly. Beautiful fields looked like marshy swamps, and the prettiest people looked like old hags. The wizard was so proud of his mirror that he flew with it around the world, causing trouble. One day, when he was flying high above the earth, he laughed so much over the misery his mirror caused that the mirror slipped from his hands and fell to the earth to splinter into 1,000,000 pieces. The splinters flew all over the place. Some stuck in people's hearts and made them cold and hard. Other tiny specks blew into people's eyes and made everything they saw appear twisted and ugly. The largest piece of all fell on the Snow Queen, who ruled the icy lands of the north. From that moment on, she became the coldest and meanest woman who ever lived. Meanwhile, far away from the Snow Queen's chilly home lived a little boy and a little girl called Kay and Gerda. Kay and Gerda were the best friends and loved each other dearly. Every day they played together, even in the winter when the Snow Queen blew her icy breath across the land. One winter's day, Kay and Gerda were making a snowman in the village square when Kay let out a cry. Ah! Something flew in my eye! He cried, and I felt a pain in my heart. Alas, splinters from the magical mirror had fallen on Kay. Hey, can I do anything for you? Asked Gerda. Get lost! Shouted Kay before kicking over the snowman. When Gerda started to cry, Kay laughed. Then he grabbed his little sledge and sped away. Kay played alone in the snow until a big sleigh stopped nearby. Kay couldn't see who was driving the sleigh, but he did not care. He fastened his sledge to the back of the sleigh, so when it pulled away, it took him with it. On and on went the sleigh, dragging Kay behind it, until it reached an icy palace. Once there, the driver of the sleigh got down and called to Kay in an icy voice. Come here, Kay. You must be freezing. It was the Snow Queen. Kay wasn't at all afraid. He wasn't even scared when the Snow Queen bent down and gave him an icy kiss on the cheek. This kiss cast a spell over Kay. It made him forget all about Gerda and think that the Snow Queen was the most perfect person he had ever seen. But worst of all, it froze his heart. Back at home, Gerda had searched high and low for Kay. Everyone in the village had joined in, but Kay was nowhere to be found.
Perhaps he has fallen in the river,
an old man suggested. Gerda took her best red shoes and threw them into the river, begging the river to give back Kay in return. But the river had not seen Kay, and the red shoes were swept back.
How will I find him? How will I find my best friend?
Wept Gerda. As if in answer, a little boat appeared at the river bank. Gerda climbed aboard the boat and was swept down the stream. On and on she went through lands and kingdoms she had never even known existed. At last, the boat came to a halt in a forest.
Where am I?
Gerda asked a passing reindeer.
Lapland,
replied the reindeer.
Have you seen a little boy with blonde hair?
Asked Gerda.
I think such a boy is living with the Snow Queen in the north,
said the reindeer.
Jump on my back and I will help you in your search.
The reindeer galloped day and night until they reached the Snow Queen's palace. As Gerda stood outside the icy walls, she shivered with fear. But she knew that it was up to her to rescue Kay. Inside the palace, Kay was cold and alone. The Snow Queen was away, and all Kay had for entertainment were some chips of ice. The Snow Queen had told him that he could go home if he could form them into the word free. But however hard Kay tried, he could not do it. When Gerda saw her beloved friend, she rushed to his side. She held him in her arms and wept as she realized that he did not even recognize her. Her tears were so pure, full of love, that when they fell on Kay's chest, they melted his frozen heart. Kay began to cry too. As he cried, the splinter of glass was washed from his eye. And when he looked down at the chips of ice, they had arranged themselves into the word free. Kay hugged Gerda with joy. "You are the best friend a boy could wish for," he smiled. Their tears of sorrow were quickly replaced with tears of joy. Come on, Kay, let's go home." And after that, Kay and Gerda never fell out again. The Frog Prince. Mama, why is it important to keep promises? Because it can either ruin or save somebody's life. Well, it can even change one's fate. Is it, Mama? Yeah. Listen to this interesting story, The Frog Prince. Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful princess who spent many happy hours playing by herself in the lovely royal garden. It was her favorite place in the whole kingdom, and when she was tired of doing nothing, she would play with a golden ball, throwing it up in the air and catching it again. And this was her favorite game. One day, as she was playing with her golden ball, it suddenly bounced away. She rushed to catch it, but it was too late. The ball dropped into a nearby pond and sank to the bottom. The princess was so upset, she sat down and cried. "Oh, I lost my favorite ball." Suddenly, she heard a voice.
"Why are you crying, dear princess?"
It asked. She looked around, but all she saw was an ugly frog. The frog had talked to her. She did not like frogs, but she answered politely, "My special ball has fallen into the pond." The frog said,
"If I dive into the pond and fetch your ball, will you promise to grant me my wish?"
"But what is it that you want from me?" she asked, a bit worried. "Is it my jewels, or my crown, or a bag of gold?"
"No, dear princess, I do not need those things. All I ask is that you let me come live with you in the castle. I must eat at your table with you and sleep in your bed." The princess thought the frog was joking. Then, because she wanted her ball back so much, she said, all right, I promise." The frog leapt into the water. The princess waited anxiously, and soon the frog came back up with the golden ball. He gave it to the princess, and she quickly ran off with it. She hoped she could run away and not have to bring the frog to the palace. The frog called out to the princess, Wait, take me with you."
and he started hopping after her. She did not even look back at him. She ran as fast as she could until she was safely back inside the palace. That evening, while she was having a quiet dinner with her father, there was a knock at the door. Her father told her to go see who it was. The princess opened the door, and there sat the frog, waiting to come in. The princess quickly shut the door, but the king noticed the frightened look on her face. He asked her who the visitor was, and she told him what had happened that day. "It's just a silly little frog," she protested. "How can I allow it to follow me home?" "A proper lady must always keep her promise," said her father. "Now go and let that frog in." The princess went to the door again and opened it. The frog hopped inside and followed her. He asked to be lifted onto the table. Then he started eating from her plate. Later that evening, the frog followed the princess to her bedroom. She was very unhappy knowing that a frog would be sleeping in the bed with her. But when she placed it on her pillow, the frog suddenly changed into a prince. The handsome prince told her that an evil witch had cast a spell on him, and only a kind princess could break the spell by granting him his wish. He was so happy that the beautiful princess was the one who had broken the spell. The princess soon fell in love with the prince. He asked her to marry him, and they lived happily ever after.
Tiny dreams.
Once upon a time, there lived a beautiful girl called Cinderella. She lived with her father, stepmother, and 2 stepsisters. After the death of her father, the wicked mother and her daughters began treating Cinderella like a slave. They made her do all the household chores and never made her feel part of the family. Cinderella used to feel very lonely. One day, a royal messenger announced that a royal ball would take place, and all the young ladies were invited.
I will wear my red velvet gown,
said the eldest stepsister happily.
I will wear my green velvet gown,
said the youngest stepsister. The day of the ball arrived. The stepmother and her daughters dressed up and went to the ball. Cinderella stood near a window and watched them go.
I wish I too could go to the ball,
she thought sadly. Suddenly, a fairy godmother appeared before her. Why are you crying, my dear? Do you want to attend the royal ball? She asked kindly.
Yes, but how can I go to the ball dressed in rags?
Cinderella asked the fairy. Wipe your tears. Bring me a pumpkin, 6 mice, and a rat, said the fairy godmother. At once Cinderella obeyed. The fairy godmother touched the pumpkin with her magic wand. Instantly it changed into a beautiful golden coach. Then the fairy godmother turned the mice into 6 horses and the rat into a coachman. Now all you need is a nice dress, said the fairy godmother. She lightly tapped Cinderella with her wand. Immediately her rags changed into the most beautiful gown she had ever seen. Now Cinderella looked like a princess. As Cinderella sat in the coach, the fairy godmother warned her, "Remember, you must return before midnight or the magic will be over." "I will," promised Cinderella. Soon Cinderella reached the palace. All the people in the ballroom gazed at her. "What a beautiful girl!" they whispered. "What a beautiful dress!" sighed the stepsisters. The prince too was enchanted by Cinderella's beauty. All evening he danced only with her. Suddenly, as the clock began to strike midnight, Cinderella remembered Fairy Godmother's warning. "Oh, I must go! I must go!" cried Cinderella and ran out.
Wait, wait, tell me your name,
cried the prince and ran after her. But Cinderella was gone. Suddenly, the prince saw something glittering on the stairs. It was one of Cinderella's glass slippers. The prince picked it up. The next day it was announced that the prince would marry the girl whose foot fitted the glass slipper. A minister went from house to house with the glass slipper. When the minister reached Cinderella's house, the two stepsisters eagerly tried the slipper, but it did not fit either of them. "It's your turn now," the minister told Cinderella.
"She is only the servant girl,"
protested Cinderella's stepmother. "She must try too," replied the minister. The slippers fitted Cinderella perfectly. Her stepmother and stepsisters were shocked. Just then, the fairy godmother appeared. And changed Cinderella into a princess. "She's the princess from the ball," gasped the stepsisters. Cinderella got married to the prince, and they lived happily ever after.
Joanna, what took you so long to return home after play? And what's in your hand? Asked the worried mama. "I was speaking to an uncle and he offered me this candy." "Oh, Joanna, you should never speak to strangers. That's very bad. Let me tell you a story of this little girl, Red Riding Hood, and what happened to her. Little Red Riding Hood. Little Red Riding Hood lived in a hut with her mother near the forest. She always wore a red hood which her grandma had gifted. One day, she was on her way to visit her grandmother. Her mother warned her not to speak to strangers on the way. All along the way, she was singing and enjoying with the rabbits and butterflies. There she met a wolf. The wolf pretended to be good and asked, "Hello, where are you going?" In spite of her mom's warning, Little Red Riding Hood spoke to the sly wolf. "I'm going to see my grandma. She lives behind that hill." The wolf thought of a wicked plan. He ran fast to the old grandma's house. He knocked at the door, and when the grandma opened, he pounced on her and gobbled her. He then went and lied down on the grandma's bed. After some time, Little Red Riding Hood reached the house. She saw the wolf on her grandma's bed and wondered, "Grandma, what big eyes you have!" And the wolf replied, "So that I can see you better." "Grandma, what big ears you have!" "So that I can hear you better," said the wolf. "Grandma, what big nose you have!" "So that I can smell you better," replied the wolf. "Oh, Grandma, what big teeth you have!" "So that I can eat you better, ha ha!" replied the wicked wolf. "Help me! Help me!" cried Little Red Riding Hood. Nearby, a woodcutter was in the forest and heard the scream. He rushed to the house and saw the wolf attacking the little girl. He hit the wolf on its head. This made the wolf wide open its mouth, and then out jumped the old grandma. The wolf ran away, and the Little Red Riding Hood never saw the wolf again. So, Joanna, this is the story of Little Red Riding Hood. What did you learn from the story? Yes, Mama, now I knew. We should not talk to the strangers.
Once upon a time, a simple and kind-hearted woman lived carrying one desire in her mind. She had only one simple dream. Her dream was to have a baby girl. Days and months passed by, but her dream did not come true. Her desire to have a little girl grows stronger and stronger. One day, to make her dream come true, she visited a witch. She expressed her desire to have a baby girl. The witch offered a magic barley grain and asked her to plant it. The birth of Thumbelina. Although the woman wasn't happy, she had a hope and planted the magic grain in a flower pot. To her surprise, the very next day, the magic barley grew into a beautiful big flower bud, which appeared like a tulip. Mesmerized by the beauty of the flower, she softly and gently kissed the bud. Since it was a magic flower, it blossomed instantly with her kiss on the bud. The woman was greatly surprised as inside the flower sat a tiny and cute little girl who looked as small as a thumb. The woman named her Thumbelina. Thumbelina's life. She became the part of the woman's life. The woman provided Thumbelina everything she needed. She used walnut shell as her bed, petals of violet flower as her mattress, and petals of beautiful roses as her blanket. Thumbelina played in the petal boat of the tulip and floated on a plate of water. She used 2 horsehairs as oars to sail around the lake. She had a beautiful voice. She played, floated, rowed the boat, and sailed around by singing and singing and singing beautifully. Thumbelina snatched by a cunning frog. After playing for long, Thumbelina fell asleep in her walnut shell. As she was sleeping, a huge frog looked at sleeping Thumbelina in the shell through the window. The frog simply gazed at her, stunned at her beauty. She thought that Thumbelina would be the right girl for her son, and picked her, ran away with her. Unfortunately, no one noticed Thumbelina snatched by a frog. The large frog carried her to the pond where her family lives. She introduced the beautiful Thumbelina to her ugly and fatty son, who was a mama's boy. Even the ugly son was pleased when he saw her. However, both the mom and son frogs were frightened that the beautiful prisoner may escape from them. Rather than let her run away from their custody, she put Thumbelina in a water lily and put the lily into the middle of the pond. Mom and son were happy that Thumbelina won't be able to escape from there. In the meanwhile, they both started preparing for the marriage. How Thumbelina escaped from the trap? The bitter talks of 2 frogs were heard by 2 minnows that were playing in the pond. They decided to help Thumbelina escape from the trap. The minnows, with the help of a butterfly, pushed the lily. The leaf with Lily floated far away from the pond, and Thumbelina escaped. Thumbelina encountered many problems. Although Thumbelina escaped from the frogs, she was soon captured by a beetle. However, very soon, the beetle freed Thumbelina as she appeared very different. Summer approached, and Thumbelina wandered in grasslands and across the flowers. The summer approached, and Thumbelina wandered in grasslands and across the flowers. She hardly found good food to eat. She ate pollen as her meals and dew as her drink. Soon, the rainy season appeared. It made the places nasty. The little girl struggled too hard to find good shelter. Even though she recovered from the heavy water drops of rainy season, the winter made her struggle even more. The winter was terrible, and she could not find food. While she was roaming on the meadows, a big spider offered her help to provide food and shelter. The spider took her to a hollow tree and fed her with chestnuts. When the spider called his family to meet his new friend, the beautiful Thumbelina, others discriminated her as she looked different. She cried loudly and left the spider's home. Again, she wandered on the cold meadows. She saw a little cottage made of wood and leaves. Thumbelina decided to request help and knocked the door of the little cottage. It was a house of a mouse. The mouse was amazed at the beauty of Thumbelina. She requested him to help her and offer her shelter. The field mouse asked her to stay with him as long as she wishes. One day, the field mouse brought a friend, a rich mole. Field Mouse asked Thumbelina to sing a song, and she sang so beautifully, and the mouse and the mole were well impressed by her singing. The field mouse ordered Thumbelina to marry the mole as he was very rich. The mouse was so cruel to her, and she decided to run away from him. The mole planned for their marriage in the summer. After a few days, she nursed a swallow bird and gave her food every day. They became closer, and the swallow bird shared her story. During the onset of spring, the swallow was completely cured and decided to fly away. She offered Thumbelina to join her. She made every possible attempt to escape from the mole marrying her. She was thinking and horrified how she was going to live in a tunnel with a mole for the whole life. Just before a day of her wedding, the swallow asked her to join and spend a day in the sky. Without a second thought, Thumbelina grabbed the finger of the bird. The bird carried Thumbelina over the hills, meadows, plains, and until they reached the flower country. The country was full of colorful flowers. The swallow gently placed her on a beautiful flower, where she met the king of flower fairies. The king was impressed by her beauty, asked her to marry him, and she instantly said yes! She became the queen of flowers. They lived happily ever after.